Imagine a sunny afternoon at a peaceful park, where laughter fills the air and children play without a care. In this serene setting, a young black teenager named Jeremiah enjoys the solitude of a quiet bench under the shade of an old oak tree. His only plan? To wait for his mother to pick him up after a long day. But this day was different. It was about to unfold in a way that no one in this small town could have foreseen. As Jeremiah loses himself in his thoughts, a figure approaches, a woman whose next actions would spark a confrontation that ripples through the community and beyond. Her call to the police about a supposed threat will lead to a shocking twist when the threat turns out to be the mayor's son. Welcome to our deep dive into a real-life incident that challenges us to question our perceptions and the shadows they cast on our judgment. This is not just a recount of events. It's a story of misunderstanding, prejudice, and the unexpected turns that can emerge from everyday encounters. Stay with us as we unpack the story of white racist woman calls police on black teen, speechless when his mom arrives and she is the mayor, exploring the intricate dynamics of a community forced to confront its deepest biases head-on. In the heart of a small, picturesque town where everyone knows your name and the community prides itself on close-knit relationships, there lies a quaint park known for its expansive greenery and a sense of peace that blankets the area. It's here, in this seemingly idyllic setting, that our story unfolds, bringing to light the complexities of human interaction and the undercurrents of societal issues that can lurk even in the most serene places. Let's introduce our main characters, whose lives intersect dramatically on this fateful day. First, we have Jeremiah, a 17-year-old high school student known for his academic enthusiasm and his involvement in community service. A black teen living with his mother in this predominantly white town, Jeremiah has always navigated his surroundings with wisdom beyond his years, embodying respect and a deep sense of community spirit. Today, like many days before, he finds solace in the quiet corners of Oakwood Park, a place he considers a refuge from the pressures of teenage life. Sarah, on the other hand, is a longtime resident of the town and an active member of the local neighborhood watch. Her involvement often springs from a genuine concern for community safety, but it is not without its flaws. Today, her protective vigilance, compounded by deeply ingrained prejudices she is perhaps not fully aware of, will lead her to make a decision that spirals into a town-wide confrontation. Sarah, a white woman in her 40s, has lived here all her life, and her actions today will force her to confront some uncomfortable truths about herself and the place she calls home. Lastly, we have Mayor Thompson, a figure of considerable respect in the town. Elected as the first black mayor of the community, her leadership has been marked by efforts to bridge gaps and foster inclusiveness. A single mother dedicated to her son and her constituents, Mayor Thompson embodies the potential for understanding and change. Little does she know, as she starts her day, that her personal and professional worlds are about to collide dramatically in the very park where her son seeks peace. As we weave through the lives of these three individuals, we will uncover not just the events of one afternoon, but the layers of history, personality, and community dynamics that set the stage for what is to come. This is more than just a recounting of a disturbance at a local park. It's a mirror to the world outside, reflecting the struggles and hopes of a small town grappling with the realities of today's America. In the leafy expanse of Oakwood Park, the sun casts playful shadows through the branches of ancient oak trees, dappling the ground with patterns of light and dark. It was a typical afternoon with families scattered across the grass, children's laughter punctuating the air, and the occasional bark of a dog chasing after a thrown ball. Amidst this ordinary but cheerful chaos, Jeremiah found his usual spot on a secluded bench, the one that offered both a view of the entire park and a bit of isolation, where the world seemed to quieten just enough for him to hear his thoughts. Jeremiah, a notebook open in his lap, wasn't writing today. Instead, he was lost in the music flowing from his headphones, a curated mix of jazz and soul that his mother had introduced him to. These moments of solitude were his method of recalibrating, of finding a center in the hustle of teenage life where expectations often weighed heavily. These sessions of reflective solitude were his to treasure, to hold on to before he returned home to homework and household responsibilities. As the afternoon waned, the park began to empty, leaving behind a quieter scene. Jeremiah remained on his bench, his eyes closed now, fully immersed in the subtle saxophone solos that filled his ears. He was a fixture in the park, often seen but unobtrusive, a silent observer of the world as it spun around him. Meanwhile, Sarah had decided to take her usual walk through the park, a routine that doubled as exercise and a community watch. As she walked her regular path, her eyes caught on Jeremiah. She didn't recognize him with his headphones and closed eyes, his stillness marking him as a stark contrast to the usual playful chaos of the park's other occupants. Her pace slowed, her gaze sharpening as she watched him from a distance, her mind ticking through the checklist of normal behavior she believed she understood. To Sarah, the sight of Jeremiah, so still and alone, began to weave a narrative in her mind. Questions and suspicions bubbled up, fueled by the day's fading light and the park's emptying paths. Why would a teenager sit so alone, so quiet? Her protective instincts, mingled with unchecked biases, began to narrate their own story, one where Jeremiah was not just a youth enjoying his music, but a potential problem needing intervention. Her concern escalated as she watched him, the peaceful setting doing little to soothe her growing apprehension. Instead of seeing a young man in his tranquil retreat, she saw an anomaly, an element out of place. This misinterpretation was all it took for Sarah to decide her next steps that would escalate from mere observation to an active response, igniting a chain of events that would leave the community and its perceptions forever changed. As the shadows lengthened and the golden hour painted the park in hues of amber and orange, Sarah's routine patrol took on a new dimension. Her walks, usually uneventful and filled with casual greetings from fellow townsfolk, today seemed charged with a tension that prickled at the back of her neck. Her eyes, once scanning the park for familiar faces and friendly waves, now returned repeatedly to the solitary figure of Jeremiah, whose continued presence began to weave a tapestry of concern and suspicion in her mind. In Sarah's view, the park was a communal haven, a space vibrant with the laughter of children and the communal chatter of neighbors. This setting did not reconcile with the image of a lone teenager, seemingly cut off from the world around him, enveloped in his silence. In her experience, such solitude did not belong in the bustling communal heart of their town. Her perception, shaped by years of watching over her community, lacked the nuance of understanding that Jeremiah's solitude was chosen, not sinister. Sarah's thoughts began to race as she pieced together a narrative that felt increasingly convincing. To her, every minute Jeremiah remained there, the scene seemed more out of place, more alarming. Her internal alarm system, calibrated to detect disruptions in her picture-perfect community, now blared silently, urging her to act, to restore what she perceived as order. As the sun dipped below the horizon, her decision crystallized with a troubling finality. The quiet around Jeremiah now appeared not peaceful, but ominous. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that her intervention might prevent some unspecified disaster. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her phone, her fingers typing the number with a practiced urgency born of many years dedicated to community safety. Dialing 911, she reported her concerns with a voice that tried to mask its quiver with firmness. "There's a young man here at Oakwood Park. He's been sitting alone for hours, and it doesn't feel right. I think you should come and check." Her words, though meant to convey caution, were tinged with uncertainty about the real threat Jeremiah posed, a threat informed more by her biases than by any observable facts. As she spoke to the dispatcher, her eyes stayed locked on Jeremiah, watching for any sign that she had made the right call. With each passing moment, her anxiety did not ease but grew, as if the very act of calling the police had confirmed the legitimacy of her fears. The park, now cast in the cool shades of twilight, felt to her not like the refuge it was for Jeremiah, but a stage set for confrontation orchestrated by her own hands. As the last rays of the sun vanished, leaving behind a canvas of twilight blues and purples, the once peaceful Oakwood Park transformed into the backdrop for an escalating drama. The air, now cooler, carried a tension that seemed to thicken with each passing minute. Amid this changing scene, Sarah, phone in hand, stood a cautious distance away from Jeremiah, her call to the police setting into motion a series of events that would unfold with unforeseen consequences. Jeremiah, still immersed in his music, remained oblivious to the concerned glances and the growing apprehension around him. It was only the distant sound of sirens, growing louder and more insistent, that finally pierced his bubble of solitude. As he removed his headphones, his confusion mirrored the sudden disruption of his calm afternoon. His eyes searched for the source of the disturbance, not yet realizing that he was the center of it. The police cruisers rolled into the park with a sense of urgency that seemed disproportionate to the serene setting. Two officers, badges gleaming under the park lights, stepped out. Their approach was methodical. Their faces set in expressions of professional concern as they made their way towards Jeremiah. "Good evening, young man. We received a call about some unusual activity here. Can you explain what you're doing?" one of the officers asked, his tone polite but firm. Jeremiah, standing up, faced the officers with a mixture of surprise and growing unease. "I was just listening to music, waiting for my mom," he responded, his voice steady despite the undercurrent of anxiety. "I come here often. I'm not sure what's unusual about that." Sarah, watching from a distance, interjected without approaching closer. "He's been here for hours, just sitting. It's not normal. This is a family park," she called out, her voice carrying a mix of fear and conviction. The officers glanced at each other, then back at Jeremiah. "Do you have any identification on you?" the second officer asked, his gaze assessing. "I'm only 17, Jeremiah replied, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his voice. "I don't carry ID to come to the park." As the officers continued their questioning, the atmosphere grew charged. Passers-by slowed their pace, their curiosity piqued by the gathering. Some pulled out their phones, beginning to record the interaction, the glow of their screens punctuating the dimming light. "Look, I don't understand what the issue is," Jeremiah continued, his confusion now tinged with frustration. "I haven't done anything wrong. We're just checking things out, making sure everything is okay," the first officer reassured him, though the continued presence of the police cars, lights still flashing silently, suggested a seriousness that belied his calm words. Just as the tension seemed poised to escalate further, the unmistakable sound of another car approaching drew everyone's attention. A black SUV, its approach slow and deliberate, pulled up to the scene. The door opened and out stepped Mayor Thompson, her figure imposing even in the fading light. As she walked towards the group, the officers straightened noticeably, their earlier assertiveness giving way to a more reserved stance. Sarah's face registered shock, her earlier confidence evaporating as she recognized the mayor. "Can someone explain what's going on here?" Mayor Thompson asked, her voice commanding and clear. She looked from the officers to her son, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. The confrontation, poised at a critical juncture, now hinged on the explanations that would be given and the revelations that were about to unfold under the scrutiny of an increasingly large audience. Under the soft glow of the streetlights, a new chapter in this evening's unfolding drama began as Mayor Thompson stepped out of her black SUV. Her presence brought a sudden, palpable shift in the atmosphere of Oakwood Park. Here was a figure of authority, not just in the administrative sense, but as a concerned parent whose unexpected arrival at the scene was about to redefine the narrative that had been playing out. As Mayor Thompson approached, her strides confident and purposeful, every eye turned toward her. The murmurs from the gathering crowd subsided into a hushed anticipation. The police officers, recognizing her immediately, adjusted their posture and expressions, their earlier assertiveness softening into a respectful attentiveness. "Officer, I would appreciate an explanation as to why my son is being questioned in a public park where he has every right to be, Mayor Thompson said, her voice calm yet undeniably firm. Her gaze swept from the police to her son, Jeremiah, whose mixture of relief and embarrassment was evident. Then, her eyes found Sarah, whose initial certainty was now clearly shaken. Sarah, standing a few feet away, felt the weight of the mayor's gaze. The realization that the teenager she had reported to the police was not only innocent, but also the son of the city's mayor sent a shock through her. Her face, once flushed with indignation, now paled, her eyes widening as the gravity of her misjudgment settled in. The confidence with which she had made the call to the police evaporated into the cool evening air, replaced by a creeping dread of the possible repercussions of her actions. Mayor Thompson turned back to the officers. "This is my son, Jeremiah. He was simply enjoying his afternoon in the park, as he has done countless times before," she explained, her tone measured but laced with an undeniable disappointment. "I'm deeply troubled that a young man sitting quietly by himself is considered suspicious behavior warranting police intervention." The officers, now clearly uncomfortable, exchanged glances. One began, "We were responding to a call about," but Mayor Thompson cut him off, her patience waning. "A call that lacked any substantive basis. I trust we are not encouraging residents to report individuals solely based on their presence in a public space." As this exchange unfolded, Sarah stood silently, her previous assertiveness nowhere to be found. The realization that her actions could have led to a vastly different outcome under different circumstances was a stark confrontation with her own biases. Mayor Thompson's authoritative intervention not only halted the confrontation, but also set the stage for a crucial dialogue about assumptions, bias, and the responsibilities of both citizens and law enforcement in fostering a community that judges not by the color of skin, but by the content of character. As she stood by her son, her figure protective yet poised, it was clear that this incident would serve as a pivotal moment for the town, a lesson in empathy and justice broadcasted not just to those gathered, but to the wider community watching through the lenses of their smartphones. In the cool embrace of the evening, as the tension of the confrontation began to dissolve, a profound dialogue emerged under the watchful eyes of Oakwood Park's lingering spectators. Mayor Thompson, her son Jeremiah by her side, engaged in a crucial conversation with the police and Sarah, one that would reverberate beyond the park's boundaries. "Let's take a moment to consider what just transpired," Mayor Thompson began, her voice steady, ensuring every word carried weight. "We have an opportunity here to reflect not just on a single incident, but on what it signifies about our community and ourselves." Her eyes, firm and expectant, met those of the officers and then Sarah, inviting them into a space of openness and introspection. The police officers, visibly more subdued, nodded in agreement. "We're here to serve and protect all members of this community," one officer said, his voice reflective. "It's crucial we assess our responses and ensure they are based on actual risks, not biases or unfounded calls." Sarah, still grappling with the magnitude of her misunderstanding, added, "I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now how my actions could have escalated into something much worse. I need to rethink what it means to look out for my community." Mayor Thompson, acknowledging Sarah's admission, expanded on the moment as a teachable one. "This isn't just about a mistaken call to the police. It's about understanding the underlying biases that motivated that call. It's about recognizing that our actions have consequences, especially when they stem from preconceived notions about race and behavior." She then turned her attention to the gathered crowd, her speech encompassing not just those directly involved, but the entire community. "We must all do better at fostering an environment where every citizen, regardless of color, can feel safe and valued. Our community's strength lies in its ability to reflect, learn, and grow from these moments." Jeremiah, who had listened quietly, his emotions a mix of relief and contemplation, finally spoke. "I'm glad my mom was here to help clear things up," he said, his voice firm yet tinged with vulnerability. "But it makes me think about what might have happened if she wasn't. How many others have found themselves in similar situations without someone to advocate for them? His words hung in the air, a poignant reminder of the personal stakes involved in every such encounter. The crowd, absorbing the weight of his reflection, was left to consider the wider implications of the day's events. As the discussion drew to a close, Mayor Thompson's final remarks underscored a commitment to actionable change. Let this be a catalyst for us to implement more comprehensive anti-bias training for our law enforcement and a broader educational initiative for all our residents. We owe it to ourselves and future generations to build a community that truly upholds the dignity of every individual. With that, the crowd began to disperse, the night's earlier drama giving way to a quiet resolve. The incident at Oakwood Park had become more than just a fleeting headline. It was now a moment of collective reflection, a step towards deeper understanding and, hopefully, lasting change. As the echoes of the evening's events fade into the stillness of Oakwood Park, we are left with a lingering question that reaches beyond the boundaries of this small town. How do our perceptions shape the realities of those around us? Tonight's story, while resolved through understanding and dialogue, opens a broader conversation about the biases that all too often go unchallenged, influencing actions that can have profound impacts on lives and communities. This incident is a stark reminder of the power of assumptions and the critical need for self-reflection. Each of us carries with us a myriad of beliefs and biases, many ingrained so deeply that they go unnoticed until they are called out by moments just like this one. It compels us to ask ourselves, how might our unexamined beliefs affect others? Are we contributing to misunderstanding and fear, or are we actively working to foster a community of inclusivity and trust? As we reflect on this event, I urge you, our viewers, to consider these questions in your own lives. Think about how you can contribute to building a community where every individual, regardless of their background or appearance, feels respected and safe. It starts with each of us, with a willingness to confront our own biases and embrace a broader, more compassionate perspective. Now, I turn the conversation over to you. How do you think situations like these should be handled? What steps can we all take to ensure our communities not only avoid these misunderstandings, but grow stronger from them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights are invaluable as we all strive to create a world where such incidents become relics of the past. Remember, change begins with a conversation, and every voice can make a difference. Let's start that dialogue today. Subscribe to our channel for more stories like this, and help us spread the message of understanding and transformation. Together, we can reshape our communities for the better. As the calm returns to Oakwood Park and the final traces of dusk give way to the night, we close a chapter that has challenged us to look deeper into the fabric of our societal interactions. Tonight's episode is more than just a recount of a misunderstanding in a small-town park. It is a powerful narrative that lays bare the often unseen currents that shape our interactions and community dynamics. We've witnessed how a peaceful afternoon can suddenly shift into a moment fraught with tension and misunderstanding, driven by unchecked biases. We've seen the power of responsible leadership in Mayor Angela Thompson, whose timely intervention not only defused the situation, but also steered it towards a constructive dialogue. Most importantly, we have seen the resilience of youth, embodied by Jeremiah, whose experience tonight will resonate with many who find themselves judged by misconceptions rather than truth. From this story, the key lessons are clear. The importance of empathy, the dangers of prejudice, and the crucial role of community leaders in fostering an environment of understanding and justice. It underscores the need for each of us to engage in self-reflection and to actively challenge the biases that can inadvertently perpetuate divisions within our communities. Now, as we move forward, I encourage you to reflect on your perspectives, to engage in conversations that bridge gaps rather than widen them. Like this video, if you found it enlightening, subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content, and share this story to help spread the message of understanding and community cohesion. Looking ahead, stay tuned for our next episode, where we explore a completely different realm of the human experience. Imagine a high-powered businesswoman. Her life a meticulous arrangement of schedules, meetings, and strategic planning, who finds herself navigating the uncharted waters of romance in the most unexpected of places. It's a tale that promises to captivate, challenge, and perhaps even change our views on love and vulnerability in the modern age. Thank you for joining us tonight. Together, let's continue to build a narrative that embraces diversity, values dialogue, and promotes a deeper understanding across all spectrums of life. Stay with us, and let's make every story count.